It all began 2 weeks ago. Found out I've been dating my father for almost 4 months. Throwaway because I can never have anyone know how this happened to me. I still have no idea how to process it. Buckle up because this is a long one. So I've never met my dad. He ran off when my mum found out she was pregnant with me. My brother was only 8 months old at the time, so he also has no memory of him. There are no pictures of him anywhere, and my mum hates talking about him. All I know is that he was emotionally abusive to her and a real a-hole. Now I, a 25-year-old male, have a thing for older men. Call it daddy issues or a fetish or whatever you want, but I pretty much only date or sleep with men 40 and up. My family doesn't know this, or that I'm gay for that matter. It wouldn't be an issue, they just never ask. We don't really share personal things like that. About 6 months ago, I met David, fake name, duh, at a club. We hit it off great. He's in great shape for his age, supposedly 43, although that's a lie. He's actually 47, as I found out. He's really attractive, charming, etc. He left for a 2-week work trip a few days after we met, but we kept messaging each other and I really liked him, which is rare for me. We went on a date after he came back and have pretty much been dating ever since. He has a lot of money, and I'm kind of a sugar baby, but that's not the reason I was attracted to him. It's definitely a plus though. I didn't tell anyone we were dating except for 2 of my best friends. He also never met any of my friends or family, and I never met his. This changed last night. We were at a restaurant when out of the corner of my eye, I spotted my mum. I don't live at home, and we only usually text if we need something, so I didn't know she'd be there, and to be honest, I still don't know why she was. She hates going out and thinks it's a waste of money. She had not seen us yet, but David noticed me looking at her. I'll forever remember the way his face changed when he saw her. His expression went from casual, charming smile he always had to this blank, panicked look. I obviously noticed and got a really bad feeling, so I asked him what's wrong, and he just got up and excused himself. I kept asking him where he was going and grabbed him so he couldn't just leave. At this point, I was really confused and suspicious, but I would have never guessed what would happen next. I don't think anything could ever prepare me for it. At some point while he was getting up, my mother must have spotted us because the next thing I know, she's next to our table, asking me what was going on. I couldn't really pinpoint her facial expressions because it looked like she was horrified, but again, at this point, I didn't know that David was my father, and she doesn't know I'm gay. David is visibly uncomfortable and looks like he wants to die. He was literally sweating. I assumed this was because he didn't want my mother to know I was dating someone of his age. I was about to try to explain what was going on to my mum when she said, "Why would you go behind my back like this?" I was so confused because, again, I didn't know he was my dad, so what was she going on about? She probably assumed I had looked for and met up my father without talking to her about it, despite her telling us how badly he treated her. To me, however, it seemed like she was acting crazy for no reason. I kind of took it personally and thought she was trying to tell me who to date and what to do, so I casually told her that I was just on a date with my boyfriend, and I tried to grab David's hand, but he just jumped up and ran away. He literally bolted like a freaking Olympic runner. I cannot get the freaking image out of my head of him jumping between waiters to get away. Everyone was staring at us by this point. It was so embarrassing, and I was mortified. My mum looked like she was frozen in place. I was more confused than ever. I had no idea what was happening. I had assumed she had asked me that because she didn't want me to be gay, which made no sense. She is very open and liberal, or date older men, which made a bit more sense, but was still none of her business. But her expression just made my skin crawl. It's like I could feel the horror she must have been experiencing. She just told me to get up and come with her. I was still confused, but something in her body language told me to just do as I was told. I quickly paid for our drinks and appetizers. Oh, thank God the main course hadn't been served yet, because damn, that stuff was expensive. My mum excused herself to her friends, and once we were in her car outside, we just sat there in silence for what felt like at least 10 minutes. I didn't really dare to say anything. I was still processing the fact that my boyfriend just freaking ran away from me, and my mother. I had also tried to text him, but he wasn't responding. Shocker, I know. When my mum spoke, it sounded like she had been shot. She sounded so wounded. I think it might haunt me forever. She asked who that man was, and I explained to her, and I went on about how much I loved him because, again, I was still thinking of David as my boyfriend and assumed my mom's reaction was because of his age or gender. I cannot believe that I went on about how much I romantically loved my dad right to my mother's face. It makes me want to puke. Long story short, she told me he was my father and that she instantly recognized him. That talk was the most traumatic experience of my life. We both started crying at some point and just wept for a while in the car. I was howling. It was freaking primal. I'm not usually emotional or prone to crying, so it was really shocking to me just how much pain a person can feel. Most of it, it's just a blur now, but especially compared to how clearly I remember every other moment of the evening up to this. We drove home. I slept in my old bedroom. We haven't talked about it since, but my brother is also staying at our place still. He's a med student, never moved out because of housing costs, and he knows something's up. He tried talking to me about it, and I just broke down again. How do I ever tell anyone about this? But the worst part is, I think, despite all of this, I still love David. Just writing that makes me want to throw up. I cannot believe this is reality. Like, how fricked is all of this? Why did this happen to me? I don't even think I could tell my therapist about this. I tried messaging David, but I just don't know what to say. The last message I sent him literally just says, "Please call me, I love you," sent right after he ran away. Like, what the frick? What the actual fricking frick? Like, how do I come back from this? How do I ever look my mum in the eye again? I haven't left my room yet, and I'm in tears again while writing this. I can't even remember the last time I cried before yesterday, and now I've been doing it non-stop. If anyone has any advice, as if, who the frick else would ever accidentally do this besides stupid me, it would be highly appreciated. Also, feel free to make dark jokes about this. It's my coping mechanism. I also did not proofread this, as I don't think I can bring myself to read it again. And if you're skeptical if this person really is someone who deals with dark humor, well, that's their username. So, hope they're coping well. Now, with such a complex story that this is, there's not much you can really offer besides your sympathies, imploring him to please talk to your therapist about this because they need to know. But in regards to making an update, he has made one. Coming out just a week later. Beginning with some house cleaning, that is basically thank you for the comments, can't take them seriously right now, still trying to process this whole experience, but also calling out what is the most creepiest of DMs, people seeming to, get off to this sort of idea? Hey, that person's going through a traumatic experience, time to get the lubricant. Like, what kind of person do you need to be where you need to be told that no, I'm not going to go ahead and have it on with my father again? What kind of question is that? Anyway, continuing on. I think I need to talk about my mother first. A lot of people have a lot to say about her, and I just think I need to set some things straight. Look, she is not a bad person, and did everything she could to raise us to the best of her ability. She's also a black single mom living in a country where she is a minority, and which put a lot of roadblocks in her way, but she was always making sure to give my brother and I the best childhood she could. When I think of her, I only have fond, loving memories. Some people assumed because of some of my previous statements that we are not a close family, which is definitely not the case. We just really value independence and freedom. I live about an hour away from my mum, but still visit her monthly. We call at least once a week. We just don't force each other to confess things or information the person doesn't willingly give up. My brother, for example, has always been very open about his dating life with my mum. She's met all his girlfriends, and they often come to family gatherings. I'm just more private. That being said, she has not always been perfect, because no parent is. A lot of people were upset at her for not telling us about our dad, and trust me when I say that she is aware that she has made a mistake. But she also moved to another continent just to keep us away from him and make sure we never run into him. So there is no way that she could have known that he would move to the same country as us years later. I'm not going to name specifics because I don't want anyone to recognize this as me, since a lot of this is already quite specific, but she really did her best to make sure we never have to go near him, and none of this is her fault. I don't blame her in the slightest. If anything, I blame myself for being so angry at her whenever she tried to tell me or my brother about him. I was never interested in finding out more about my father. In truth, I resented him deeply for leaving my mother alone to fend for herself in a world that wanted to see her fall. So, daddy issues. I get it. Since this has come to light, a lot of things I didn't know about my family have also been brought up. I found out that my brother and my mother often talked about my father, just not in front of me, since I was so adamant to never learn anything about him. I mean, I remember throwing a tantrum because my brother kept asking when Dad's birthday was. Oh no, and what's worse, my brother knew his full name, had seen pictures of him, and knew most of the full story of what had gone down between my mum and him. So this could have all been resolved if you had a close enough relationship to your brother where you were more open about showing pictures of the people you were dating. I know we like to have private lives, people, but this is why you share things. But my parents' story is not mine to share, as it is fully hers, and so I will not go into details, but know that he was not just emotionally abusive like I had believed my entire life. He was also physically and financially. The story of him leaving when she found out I was pregnant isn't fully accurate either. He apparently threatens to harm her if she didn't get an abortion, and so she packed her things up and left him. According to her, he never reached out or tried to find her, and she moved to make sure it would stay that way. She really just tried to protect us, and I'll never be able to truly articulate how grateful I am. Obviously, finding out about all of this just makes me feel worse. I always shut them out when they tried to tell me about my father and refused to learn anything about him because I naively presumed that I was better than him, and therefore didn't need to bother learning anything about a man I wasn't good enough for. Obviously that backfired, and here we are. Thankfully, my mother does not blame me whatsoever. She is extremely understanding of my side, and we've convinced her to find a therapist, and she also joined group counseling for victims of domestic violence. My brother, on the other hand, is absolutely livid. I felt we had to tell him eventually, and after consulting with my therapist, we decided to just rip it off like a band-aid, set him down, and I basically first told him I was gay. He did not care, as expected. Then, that I was into older men. He was very confused where this was going, and also why I was telling him. I don't think he was ready for it or took it well. And then, that I met Dad, and that bomb kinda hit, and took all his attention at first, because he's always wanted to meet him, and really struggled with not having a father, unlike me, who doesn't have any issues at all about dads and fathers. Nope. His excitement quickly faded, though, when he connected the dots of me being into older men, meeting Dad, and my mom and me being weird and worrying behavior for the past days. It fricked him up pretty bad. I really regret telling him at all. He can't come to terms with it and is visibly disgusted by the thought, as he always viewed our father as our father, while I viewed him as some afterthought sperm donor that ran off. He hasn't really talked to me since we told him, and when he does, it's disgusting remarks, insults, or passive aggression. Now, I say this towards your brother with an absolute understanding that this is akin to literal grief, but brother of OP, go frick yourself, you self-absorbed, self-loathing piece of schmidt. You're not the one who was hoodwinked by your partner and left to feel like a disgusting blob of human flesh. I mean, what the hell is this victim blaming he's resorting to? Again, I understand you kind of reacting to a very insane revelation, but it's not OP's fault for shattering your view of your father, it's your father's. But the story keeps on going, as they literally reach the word count, so they had to resort to just adding a bunch of comments to further update it all. So my mother is furious with my brother, and it's not helping. She's always hated when we'd fight, but now especially, she feels like he's treating me unfairly since I'm already going through so much. which you are. But I think he's fully within his right to be angry or disgusted. He's just being such a duck about it. It's also really uncharacteristic of him to act like this. He even went as far as to call my aunt, my mum's sister, and tell her what happened. Thankfully, we can trust her to keep it a secret. Her husband and her are basically a second set of parents to us, but I still think it's really fricked up of him to do that. He also refuses to see a therapist and keeps saying that I'm the mentally messed up one, not him, whenever we try to bring it up. It's only been like less than 48 hours since we told him though, so I'm sure he'll come around.
I don't need to see therapist, you do!
He says, stomping around, experiencing a sense of trauma while not being his psychological normal self. Edit 2, he also really wants to go meet Dad, which everyone keeps telling him is a terrible idea because he really is the worst. Stay tuned because goddamn, but he's so stubborn and keeps yelling at me to give him Dad's address. He's so obsessed with this idea of a man that doesn't exist and wants Schmidt to do with him. Even before I found out he was my father, he never wanted to meet my family. Granted, I also didn't want him to meet them, but the one time we talked about it, he laughed at the idea as if it was preposterous. Now, he's really the only person I blame in all of this besides myself. He really is a little cowardly piece of trash, and I wish I never fricking met him. I think this entire thing and his behavior after being recognized just really broke something in me that I didn't really know was there. I never cared about him before, but now I genuinely know that he will also never give a single schmidt about me, and that really hurts. So basically, I've kept texting and calling my father in the evening of what we've referred to as the event because I was desperate and confused and couldn't really believe what was happening. I then texted him 2 more times the day off and called once. No response to either. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the scum dad of the year. Then 2 nights ago, I decided to call him again, even though everyone in my entire life was against it. This was also just after we told my brother and we had a huge fight about it. I was really vulnerable, and I don't know what the hell was fried in my head, but some part of me must have believed that he'd comfort me. After all, he had been extremely emotionally available during our relationship, which very much contrasted what my mother had told me about him and their relationship. I didn't think he'd pick up the phone, but he did, and it was freaking terrible. He immediately started yelling as soon as he picked up. He had never yelled at me before, ever. Started calling me all kinds of slurs like bundle of sticks and meow, I'm a cat, which is just absurd. Started threatening me that he'd off me and my bitch mother if I ever contacted him again. Said that if I told anyone about this, that I'd regret ever meeting him. Joke's on you, buddy, I already do. It was such a freaking turn of character. I was genuinely not prepared for it and had no idea what I was supposed to do. I just cried on the other end of the phone while he kept yelling at me till he finally hung up. The entire thing was utterly terrible, and I can't believe that I didn't trust my mother and listened to her sooner when she clearly tried to tell me how horrible he was on multiple occasions throughout my childhood. I just feel so stupid. I'll probably never contact him again, but I cannot believe I undid all the efforts my mother put in to keep us safe all those years and let him play the both of us in the exact same way just because I wanted some duck. By the way, I took some people's advice and sent the post to my therapist with a short email explaining some more private stuff. I sent it around 5 a.m. the day after the event, and then went to sleep for almost 15 hours, and woke up to tons of missed texts and calls from her, starting with extreme concern, then slight annoyance because I think she thought it was a sick prank since I didn't respond. We talked on the phone later, and she told me that I can call her whenever I want. She is not an in-person therapist, which I prefer. I do feel security in knowing that I can confide in her, and I'm glad I told her. I also joined some online support groups. Most of them either shamed me because of the age gap or my sexuality, so that really didn't do much good. Name and shame those support groups right now. Do it. I've also told my 2 best friends, against what some people advised. I trust them with everything, and they wouldn't be my friends if that wasn't the case. I will be using fake names for this, but basically, Leah, my oldest friend, we met in kindergarten, called me on FaceTime. Not unusual. The night of this happening, I had told her I was sick, so she'd leave me alone, but she called me to ask how I was doing the next day. I had just another mental breakdown, and was still sobbing when I picked up the phone, and she was obviously concerned, and I just kind of blurted it out. Of course, she thought I was joking at first, asked me if I was on drugs or something. I don't even do drugs, because I pretty much never cry. I then just kind of told her everything, and it was really freeing. She was the first person I told. I then sent our other friend the TikTok of this and just let her react to it. Then told her I wrote that and let Leah handle it. Jesus, just dropping a grenade into your social circle there. Take care, guys. Come back to me once you've, processed everything. I'm really grateful for them. They have been insanely supportive. I'm still staying at home, and they're helping me to feed my cat and look after my plants for as long as I need. No judgment at any point. Just them asking me how they can help. Get yourself friends like this. So, all in all, my dad is trash, to no one's surprise. I might have mentally broken my brother, therapy works, and my mother and friends are the best people on this planet. I'll keep answering questions for the next few days, and I think after that, I'll log out of this account for good. Documenting and sharing this with people has really helped me, and I appreciate all the comments, even if I cannot do much with them to help my recovery at the moment. Also, the jokes are top tier. Keep them coming. Everyone's tiptoeing on eggshells around me, so it's nice to see the comments just go feral. I just want to feel normal again. And yeah, look, the comments truly are an entertaining session. I think I speak for Reddit as a whole when I say, holy Schmidt. Imagine having daddy issues because your daddy walked out on you, only for those daddy issues to be precisely why you ended up fricking your own daddy. Yes, this entire relationship is a great case of the Oedipus complex. God damn it, Sigmund Freud, you strike again. Well, now you know why he left your mum. I'm sorry you now have to live with the knowledge that you and your mum have the same taste in men. What a wonderful thing to bond over. Well, I guess blood is thicker than water. I wonder if something else was thicker. Yes, I hope you didn't call him daddy while you was having the smecks. See, people, sometimes manifesting through affirmations isn't a good thing. Anyway, that is the story of it all. As OP says, there is no plan to make a further update. I don't think there needs to be at this point. From here on out, I think it's up to OP to let them live their life and move on from this as much as they can. But regardless, I hope, both from myself and behalf of them, that you enjoyed the story today, as it definitely is a ride of sorts. And hey, look, if it managed to help them somewhat to rant about their problems online to strangers, especially for something like this, then hell, maybe posting random stories on Reddit is actually rather therapeutic for people than we tend to realize. Anyway, until the next crazy story, my name's been Jack, you've been an absolute snack, and I'll see you next time. Daddy.